As President Trump's crackdown on immigration continues, the administration rolled out the red carpet and plane to welcome just under 60 white South Africans they described as refugees, saying they face racial discrimination back home. President Trump says the U.S. had to take in the group because white farmers are being killed in South Africa in what the president calls a genocide. There's no evidence that that's taking place. Now, some civil rights advocates are questioning the decision to admit only white refugees after the Trump administration has cut off access to others facing war and famine. Our next guests are here to talk about it. Joining us here on The Factor Uncensored from the University of Houston downtown, Professor Dr. David Branham, Executive Director of Fiel Houston, Cesar Espinosa, political analyst Angela Box, and Dr. Dietrich von Biedenfeld. Glad to have you all here on The Factor. So, Cesar, when you see this, you've got to be bothered by this.
I'm waiting to see what Angela says. I'm waiting to see what all Trump supporters say in defending this and defending. I mean, South Africans are reaping, or these Africans or whatever you could. Afrikaners are reaping what they sowed. In the 1940s to the 1990s, they started apartheid. They were blatantly genociding and racist against black folks in their own country. And now, oh my God, they're scared. They want to get out of there. And Trump decides to roll out the red carpet, bring him on in, and fast-track them to citizenship. Blatant racism that's playing out. I'm not even surprised anymore because they've been blatantly racist, deporting brown people, telling them they don't want them here, telling us they don't want us here, making even citizens feel like they don't want them here. And this is just more of the fake news, not to mention that there is no proof. There is no proof that they are being targeted and they are being, but in fact, the real fact of the matter is that white South Africans still own most of the land and are still in control of the country. So, I mean, let's go, Angela. I'm waiting to hear what how you're going to defend this.
Everybody wants to hear what Angela has to say.
None of what you said was factually correct. In fact,
she believes everything that Trump says, period.
I can do research.
Let's begin here first, Angela. Is there a genocide of white farmers?
Absolutely there is. In fact, in South Africa right now, 8 out of 10 of the markers of a genocide have already taken place. There have been story after horror story after horror story of generational farmers who are having their land seized, who are being murdered, innocent people. And we're talking about the sins of the father kind of crap that we've had to deal with in this country for these many years. You know,
meaning the colonizers who came to South Africa, these are their direct descendants. Direct descendants,
just like in this country, white people are continued to be blamed for something that happened 150 years ago.
That you did. Slavery is real.
Excuse me.
So is apartheid. Apartheid was real.
And apartheid is now over. And now South Africa is on the fast track to becoming Zimbabwe. So it's going really great over in South Africa. And I think it's wild that people who literally hopped the border, who flooded the border en masse. We're not talking about these lovely families coming over. We're talking about mostly single-age men, mostly military single men who came over here illegally, who have no desire to assimilate, who have no desire to learn the language, who expect handouts. And I will say this, that I'm pretty sure the Afrikaners are not going to be flooding into Springfield, Ohio and eating any pets like the Biden administration did half of Haiti in there.
But they're asking for giveaways from all these humanitarian organizations who
you know what's disgusting. You know what's disgusting? Yeah, because they're the racist. The Episcopal Church is actually the racist, saying that they don't want to work with white refugees because white people evidently can't be discriminated against. It's disgusting. The left is doing the exact same thing they always do, and I'm just sitting back and laughing.
And this is why we need critical race theory thought in every school, so that people like Angela
we need
discriminate. Can know about history.
Your descendants.
My descendants, all the sins of my mothers and my fathers. Yes, we need discrimination, according to Caesar. Discrimination.
Actively every day.
No. How do you know? You don't even know about me, Cesar.
Every time we come on here, you blame people of color for everything that's wrong with America.
What do I say
because that's
about
what
people
Trump
of color?
says. Trump says people of color and poor people are to blame, and poor people who are working
let me
here,
ask you this
making
question.
sure that we're
before you
getting
ask that
everything ready.
question,
No.
let me get my popcorn. We'll be back. Welcome back. Dozens of white South African refugees have arrived in the United States, and the Trump administration says this is just the first group in what could be a wave of Afrikaners coming to the States. But critics are asking why them and not other refugee groups from around the world. Let's get back to our panelists. Angela, you were making a point.
It's wild to me that literally 3 weeks ago, we had a bunch of Democrats going over to El Salvador to beg and plead the government of El Salvador to return an MS-13 gang-banging, wife-beating human trafficker, bring him back into the United States. But Cesar and the left is having a conniption over 49 refugees. And this idea that, oh, why these people and not those people? It's like, are you serious? We have brought over practically the entire third world into this country for decades and decades and decades. And so this idea that white people in a country that is incredibly hostile towards them, we have a political party in South Africa, a very famous rally he held saying kill the Boer, which means kill the white man. I mean, this is no joke, and people are being killed over there because of their race.
Let's get to our experts, Dr. Branham. Your thoughts, is there a genocide going on in South Africa that targets white farmers?
I think there's a worry on it, and the worry comes from the government, and it's not so much the statistics that you see and so forth. It's that you have a president who is by all definitions a communist president who has in his hand a law that says I can take away your property and there's nothing you can do about it. I don't have to compensate you or anything. So we have a communist president who has that power. Think if Donald Trump had that power, how people would feel in this country where he can just take your property and there's nothing you can do about it. So white people in South Africa should be very concerned, in my opinion. They are in a vulnerable position.
But is there a genocide?
Now,
because when you look for statistics on this, there are none.
There's not. Well, the issue
According
is
to the South African government.
Farmers are about 3 times more likely to be victims of murder than the rest of the population. But
what they also indicated, though, those murders are the result of monetary gain, not because somebody is
robbery.
white.
They say it's robbery, it's not racism. So how do you know exactly what the motives are? And plus, there are black people who also have been attacked. So I mean, the argument goes both ways. But if you look at sort of the tea leaves of the country and you see how things are going, I think there's a president there who is willing to he wants to have that power to take away that property from the past that's been taken away. And if white people own about 70% of all the property in South Africa, you should think, okay, I'm vulnerable here. And that's the reason why you're getting so many of these applications now.
Do you think it's fear fueling this before anything actually happens?
It could be. The problem is that there's an unknown there. And so, yeah, I think there is fear fueling this. But you have about 8,000 applications right now because people are seeing this is a spot that I'm really not feeling comfortable in, and I may be in trouble here.
All right, Dr. Von Biedenfeld, your thoughts on this?
Right. I do think there's a statistical worry. I mean, as Dr. Brandon mentioned, if you're 7% of the population and you own 70% of the land, that disparity is going to encourage economic crimes regardless of those asylum factors that we might use to classify genocide, such as ethnicity, cultural origin, or religion. At the end of the day, I think a lot of this is messaging and symbolism, and the challenges are less legal than they are political. I mean, at this point, Congress, which would be the Immigration and Naturalization Act enforcer in Article 2 their power, has only stood up to the president as far as the Library of Congress's operation. They haven't even argued against the firing of the Librarian of Congress. So Article 2 has taken over Article 1 in many ways, and I think a lot of the public is saying, hey, compartmentally, what about the Israeli settlers that might be taking farmland from people in the Near East? How is this different? How are you going to get a private jet, State Department charter, and bring 60 people over, fewer than 60 people over, when the argument that the Colombian president had with sort of bringing the Colombian nationals back on military planes when he pointed out that that was offensive and sort of degrading, like get them on commercial charters like anybody else, that was met with threats of tariffs and other retaliatory actions. And then, of course, the thousands of people waiting already, and so cutting the queue, legally you're supposed to file for asylum in the country. So there are a lot of these things, I think, that are symbolism, but it doesn't negate the fact that there are very real concerns. And if the president can do something in this small area, it's very much within his authority.
All right, we'll be right back with our guests here on The Factor. Stay with us. But we had a chance to talk to a State Department official, and this is what Christopher Landau had to say.
We're sending a clear message that the United States really rejects the egregious persecution of people on the basis of race in South Africa.
Flying white Afrikaners over here to the United States to find refuge when they deny refuge for everybody else, from war-torn communities at that. I mean, this is very clear to us.
Now, the White House says this group was strictly vetted, and it's just the first of many that will be relocated to the United States. Let's bring our guests back in for this conversation. So, guys, Cecil, let's begin with you. How important of a role did you think Elon Musk had in this, who is from South Africa?
I mean, I think it's the same thing. Trump is Elon's pet, and so he's going to do whatever Elon says and whatever he wants. But I think the real three questions, the elephant in the room is, number one, how did 7% of the population end up with 70% of the land in South Africa? Number two is, when you have actual countries that are killing people, that are war-torn, that there's actual facts and numbers, and you deny them refugee status, but then these other people on supposed threats or fears are being let in, it just sends the wrong message. And number three, there's an actual genocide happening right now in Gaza. And I don't see Trump sending planes for children and women who are dying every single day in airstrikes. What's the answer to that? We're going to say, oh, it's because it's not in our register yet. There's political ties there, and all of this is Trump's political game.
Also, we have, guys, and I'm sure you're aware that there are a group of Afghans who worked with Americans who were granted asylum here in the United States, and that asylum won't be renewed in July, so they have to head back into dangerous territory. Let's bring you back in.
Well, I mean, I'm glad you brought up your 3 points here, because I'd like to say, here's some of the things that the South African white farmers are doing in South Africa. They currently produce 95.3% of their corn, 98.7% of their wheat, 97.6% of their cotton, 97.2% of their citrus, 99% of their potatoes, and it goes on and on and on. Now,
immigrants are doing the same thing here in the United States.
So I let you put in your 3 points. Okay, so
I'm just saying. I get excited because
here's the major difference I think we've got in Africa as a whole. Unfortunately, a lot of these countries are turning into very war-torn, messed up places to be, okay? It is what it is. Now, the difference between these Afrikaners and the tens of millions of people teeming over our border brought here by Joe Biden is that these people are coming here legally. They're coming with their families. They are going to assimilate into American culture. And President Trump was very clear in the campaign that we are going to be prioritizing people that want to come into this country, who want to do all those things, who will be functioning members of society, assimilate, speak English, and not be a burden on the taxpayers. And that is what these people are going to be.
Never have been, never will I be.
All right.
I'm
to you guys,
say you were.
What role do you think Elon Musk may have played in all of this?
I think he's basically a sort of a figurehead now. I mean, he's not really saying much. They basically are coming together in little groups, and they're talking and say, well, we're best friends and all that. So that's kind of what his role is. It's just a figurehead, somebody from the
I'm
country.
sorry, initially when Trump went into office and he started his new administration, Musk was right there with him. And do you think Elon Musk was in his ear about South Africa?
I'm sure he was.
I would say the average American didn't even notice what was going on in South Africa.
I knew what was going on in South Africa.
Yeah,
like,
well, with South, with all of Africa, we're talking about these 59 refugees. In 2018 and 2019, Trump's last 2 years before COVID, they approved 50,000 plus refugees, and over half of those were from Africa. So it's not like he's only picking the white people out of Africa to come. Now, he has a history of admitting refugees from all different continents of the world. So to me, it's a little bit unfair just to point to 59 white people.
Why does this look so bad then, Dr. Brandon?
I think a lot of it is that, all of a sudden the media is on this, that he's stopped
Was
refugees.
it also back when he said, this is my effort, this is my campaign to close the borders? And he invited the media in.
He did.
And now with this group, he also invited the media in to get video of them coming in.
He did.
Not him, but his administration.
I mean, oftentimes the person who makes him look worse is himself. He will put his mouth where it shouldn't be, and it'll come back to bite him. So I think that's one of the things here. I'm just, I'm a little bit worried that there's a perception that he won't take refugees from Africa ever. I mean, he has a history of doing it. He just has a history right now of cutting it off and then letting these white refugees in.
All right.
I think it's a different minority report, right? But it really is anticipatory because, again, we've compartmentalized our reasoning on this strong dichotomy of right and left, where we've forgotten Zimbabwe, where what happened when those white farmers were displaced is poverty and starvation because there wasn't a transition plan. Again, I didn't call the president and say, make me vocational czar before he started this push for onshoring, where really we needed to build the foundation and address lead times for CDL permits, welders, et cetera, and then do the onshoring. In this case, this anticipatory repudiation of potential rights and this change from the 75 Expropriation Act to this 2024, I think that upset President Trump. I think Elon Musk, even in the affinity circle, we know that the president with his 2 visits, first state visits, they're Saudi Arabia. So he likes these cultures where friends and family are able to be rewarded. To Angela's point, he likes seeing the United States become an English as the first language, primary official language, and for people to assimilate to us. And I think some of that goes back to his roots and Melania's roots, because when you go to places like Germany and the main dish is pork, when you started bringing in Syrian refugees, there was a lot of conflict about what was on the school menu, right?
Yeah.
This isn't halal. Sorry, you're in Germany, you're in Austria. This is what we eat. So I think some of that mentality and cultural identity comes from his history, and he says, this is what the United States should look like to me, and I'm going to mold it in my image.
All right.